Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Just to let you know, we'll start the presentation in about 1 minute. Hello again, everyone. Just to let you know, we'll start the presentation in about 30 seconds. An official hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Safety and Health Magazine webcast, AI First Mindset, From Vision to Practical Transformation, sponsored by Ideagen. This is Alan Ferguson. I'm Associate Editor at Safety and Health and co-host of the On the Safe Side podcast, and I'll be moderating today's event. Thank you once again for joining us, and before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items. As a disclaimer, the views of today's speakers and organizations are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the National Safety Council or Safety and Health Magazine. Any mention of a commercial enterprise, product, or publication does not mean the council or the magazine endorses those items. After today's presentation, we'll conduct a question and answer session with our speaker. If you have a question, click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, type your question, and press the send button. We welcome your questions at any time during today's event. You don't have to wait for the Q&A to begin. We might not get to every question, but the good news is unanswered questions will be forwarded to today's sponsor. Also, after this presentation, we asked to complete a brief evaluation survey, and I'll tell you more about that a little bit later. Just to let you know, this webcast will be archived so you can access it after today's live event. To view this webcast and all of our past webcasts, please visit safetyandhealthmagazine.com/events, or you may also receive a link in our post-event email. With that, let's introduce our speakers. With us today are James Lewin, Pei-Wen Shin, and Crystal Truax. James is the Director of Safety at Allegiant and leads programs such as the Safety Management System, Flight Operations Quality Assurance, the Aviation Safety Action Program, and Fatigue Risk Management. In nearly a decade at Allegiant, he's implemented system-wide initiatives, including the transitioning of more than 14,000 users to Ideagen's Safety and Quality Management solution. James holds a private pilot certificate, an FAA aircraft dispatcher license, and a master's degree in aeronautics from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Pei-Wen is the manager of safety analytics at Allegiant and specializes in data analytics and process optimization to enhance safety and security programs. An expert in Power BI and SQL, she transforms safety data into actionable insights for informed decision-making. She holds a master's degree in safety science from Embry-Riddle and a private pilot certificate. Crystal is Vice President of Product Management at Ideagen, overseeing the environmental health, safety, and quality product lines. She spent the last 10 years working with EHSQ software as a service products, empowering EHS professionals to leverage technology to solve industry problems. Crystal also has experience in permitting, compliance, and environmental remediation. Crystal, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. I think I'm the only one without a pilot's license in this group. I'll have to up my game. So before we really dive into this fireside chat about AI, an AI first mindset when it comes to safety, James, I want to really understand, kind of get personal for a moment. What was your aha moment when you realized that AI wasn't just hype, but actually something that could transform safety practices at Allegiant?
Yeah, sure. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the question and thanks for the introduction. It's a pleasure to join the podcast and be able to be part of the presentation. So thanks for Crystal for hosting that, and thanks for the invite. And welcome the audience to this podcast and presentation. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. But as far as let's get into the topic, right? The aha moment for AI. For me, I guess maybe I can point out a couple of situations, right? One is a very personal force into kind of aha moment is when, one of those Amazon returns where, they said they deliver it, but they didn't. I had to go into the chat for the Amazon agent, and I thought it would be talking to a person. And then it turns out to be an AI, chatbot. And it issued me a refund and everything. So that was kind of a first introduction of AI, and that was kind of the aha moment commercially. But then Personally, actually, a few months back, I had to go to London for a trip, and I had it was a business and personal trip. So the last few days, I had a lot of time to spend, and I had no idea what to do in London. And so I actually just went into, ChatGPT and typed in my days and what I was going to plan on maybe doing. And it gave me a whole list of suggestions and made the plans for me, even accommodated my personal needs. Like if I were to visit the Windsor Castle, you can put your check or your luggage at this storage place for 3 hours for this amount of money. And actually go on this website to reserve that. And so the entire 4-day trip was planned out by ChatGPT, and it worked out just fine, and I'm still alive. So yeah, that was kind of my aha moment. But for work, I'll save that one for later. I think we'll probably get to that one. There's definitely some aha moments, even just from the workplace alone.
Yeah, and it sounds like, it's so easy to use and it's such a big part of, or can be such a big part of our everyday life, um, that we're at a really, an inflection point. And Pei Wen, so next question is for you. From your analytics perspective, when did you first see AI's potential to really change how we approach our safety data, and what really made that click for you?
Thank you, Crystal. For me, it really clicked when we started working with more than 100,000 data points from across various safety programs, such as audit findings, volunteer reports, and training records, and more. And AI actually helped us process all of that quickly and present a high-level view that pointed us towards area worth investigating. And it didn't just summarize the data; it categorized the issue based on the prompts that we actually gave it, and then which gave us a direction to start looking into the why. And it wasn't immediately like actionable, but it narrowed down the noise and helped us to focus our attention, which was a big shift from how we used to approach large volume of the safety data.
Yeah, and just to touch on that a little bit, when you say it saved time, how much time are we talking? Is it a really significant amount? I mean, we're talking about 100,000 plus data points, right?
Yeah, certainly. So for 100,000 plus data set to actually conduct a thorough analysis, I would say with visualizations and everything, that can potentially take up to a couple weeks of work. But then with the AI, after you give a structured um, data set, basically, and then it actually can give you like a direction in really just like a couple minutes if you give the prompt correctly.
Yeah, that's an incredible amount of time saving. So let's jump into, why this moment is different. So, James, as a safety director, you've probably seen technology come and go. I know in the last 10 years in my technological background, a lot of things have changed. What makes AI more sticky, and what makes this moment in time different for this technology?
Yeah, that's a interesting question. I mean, AI has been around for a few years now, and it evolved even within that few years quite significantly. But what I think is that AI fundamentally changes how we think and not just how we do things. So a lot of times before, when there are innovations in the tech side, it's very focused on one vertical or one area within, maybe even an industry, or if it's, a general industry, across kind of our life. It's still kind of focused on this one vertical. But with AI, really, there's infinite and scalable deployment cases all around in every single industry, every single vertical, and it spans across various fields and directions as well. What makes it different is that it also makes everything that we think may be impractical practical, or something that's closer to reality. In terms of how we build processes and how we solve problems, it helps us think through solution in a different way, and it enables kind of solution in a much more effective and efficient way. And it just changes how we solve problems. And that's kind of the cool part, right? When I remember when I first started in 2016, 2017, we were thinking about classifying reports. I don't know how many what type of safety professionals are there, but when you are processing frontline safety reports, a lot of times you have to classify reports and make a data set out of that. But when I first started, it was a NASA research project to how to automate how we taxonomize reports and get them into classification. Now it's really just training an AI. In a few weeks, you have a pretty decent product that's customized to your organization. It's pretty amazing. I mean, even on a simple level with Outlook emails, right? You always run into those emails that you don't really want to respond to for a week because it's just like such a tricky situation. I want to dodge that bullet as long as I can possibly do it. But now with AI, you can literally at least have it come up with a draft, and then it seems a lot more approachable. So really, it hits on every single aspect of your life in different verticals, and that's how I think it makes a huge difference and differentiates it from other technological advancements.
Yeah, and it makes me, when you're talking, it makes me think of, a mountain. Maybe not Mount Everest, but a mountain of say 100,000 data points, right? And looking at it before, you were like, how can I possibly do this? It is an event. But now it's really, yes, it's a mountain, but it's something that we can, summit pretty easily and gain insights from. So
Absolutely.
that's really good insights into kind of the practicality. So we're going to jump into the evolution of safety and AI integration. So Pei Wen, you work with safety analytics data day in and day out. Can you walk us through what safety data analytics looked like before AI to kind of build off of what James is saying versus what you're seeing now, not just in terms of like time saved, but what's fundamentally changed in your workflow?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. Before AI, even with some of more advanced BI tool like Power BI or Tableau, our workflow was still pretty manual. We have to guess what might be worth looking into it, and then pull together all the data points and aggregate it and hope the dashboard out will surface something interesting. And then usually once we saw something pop up, and that's when we will go back and dig deeper and then try to figure it out if there's actually a pattern or a trend. But now with the AI, though, the process is very different. Once the data is cleaned and organized, we can basically prompt AI to surface emerging patterns, even across unstructured data like narrative reports or audit comments. And it's not just about I don't think it's not about replacing human analysis. It's about accelerating and helping us to get deeper insight faster. AI gives us a head start and help us to ask better questions right from the beginning.
Yeah, and it sounds like, you're just getting to that source of truth. And you said it earlier where this really helps take away the noise, right? You can be laser focused on the things that matter. And also, from a data analytics standpoint, you're able to get the information to the people that need it to make those decisions a lot easier with a lot more confidence. Is that kind of in line with what you're seeing?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, James, I'm going to go back to you. If you've seen the pattern or not, I'm going to go back and forth here. But I want to think about traditional safety excellence. It's built on that people first foundation, right? As you've developed an AI mindset at Allegiant, how has AI become a tool that better serves that core people first philosophy?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of interesting, right? We titled this webinar podcast with AI first mindset, but I also want to emphasize that we can't forget about the objective, the real objective of having, safety programs and having a safety culture. It's always about the people. So in terms of the overall objective, it's still people first, right? But when you think of solutions to how to improve people and how they perform, whether it be at work or personal lives, AI can become a first thing you think about when you're thinking about a solution. So I just want to emphasize that with safety, it's always people first. And I strongly believe that when you're taking care of people, your organization will become safe, because that's why we're emphasizing and promoting safety culture, right? It's for the people, not for AI or anything else. So it is true that AI is becoming more and more of a solution and taking much more, a bigger stage in that. But when you're developing new products, designs, processes, and how people interact with things, really people should always be at the center of the considerations, because AI is really increasing the potential of augmenting how people think, and thinking more efficiently and more effectively about risks. Ultimately, AI is not here to address your safety risk for you or mitigate your safety risk for you. People still need to do the work. You still have to rely on people in the operation, people that are safety professionals to come up with mitigations, right? But the AI is going to help you bridge that gap between maybe the time and the resources it takes from, okay, let's have the objective of keeping people safe, but in between that and what do we need to do to accomplish that objective, AI can help you shorten that turnaround time. But yeah, ultimately, it's really about focusing on the people. And if you think about our customers as safety professionals, people are it. People in the organization. From an airline standpoint, it's about our passengers, about our internal customers, so our operational groups, our business units, and even ourselves, right? So yeah, ultimately, it's still thinking about people first and having AI help with that overall goal.
Yeah, and a lot of good points there, and especially from the software, from the product management side that I come from, is when we're building tools that help people do their jobs more efficiently, more safely. I mean, it's always human centered, and AI is no different. Approaching it from a tech standpoint, where it's human in the loop, it's human, supplemented reasoning, where the goal is to give better tools to do the most important things, which is keeping people safe. So even though, I mean, I guess we've started this conversation about all the great things about AI, but let's talk about addressing AI hesitation and really building that confidence. Because even though I'm a firm believer that AI is here to stay, it is a transformational technology. It can still be kind of scary to think about. So I want to talk about data for a moment, and what you guys are hearing from your safety professionals who are, I mean, maybe a little bit hesitant about AI-driven analytics. Is there, how do we trust this? What concerns have come up most for you guys on this journey?
So I'll actually take that one. So I have a few, I have here a few recurring concerns when it comes to AI-driven analytic. The first one, that is trust and transparency. Many people feel like AI is like a black box, that if they do not understand how the insight was generated, or if it does not align with what they are seeing on the ground or in the air, they naturally question it. And then the second is data quality and completeness. It is not just about clean data, it's about having the right data. If something important is not captured or integrated, the analysis will not reflect the full picture. And then lastly, though, is fear of losing human judgment. There's concerns that AI will replace experiences and intuition, especially in a field like safety, right? Where decisions often depend on real world context and also expertise. So my perspective actually in this is AI is only as good as the context that is given. In safety work, we do not just look at data. To James' point earlier, we consider culture, procedures, environmental conditions, organizational norms, and also human behavior. So if we do not feed all of that into data, feed into AI, that is just analyzing event data in isolation. So that can lead to into a narrow or even misleading interpretation of what is really happening.
Yeah, there's always that chance for bias, right? And it's something that you really have to build into and be thoughtful about the guardrails, the parameters that you're setting up. So, James, on the other side of that, how do you address the concerns from your team about, AI generated analytics, and how do you approach building confidence in those AI supported safety decisions?
Yeah, first off, I think it's important for a person like me that leads a decent sized team, where again, I always think about the people first and how to improve their work environment, and inherently that becomes a more enjoyable workplace. And when people enjoy their workplace, they tend to just do what's right, and that's usually the safer thing to do as well. But when it comes to AI, my mindset is that AI doesn't really reduce the need for subject matter expertise. I have a team of almost 20 that are totally specialized in safety, and AI is not going to eliminate any one of their job or capacity. It just increases the capacity and the impact that they have. Basically, it just makes better use of their time. And I think AI helps filter out the noise in the data set and helps us detect isolated anomalies better, but also still requires us to apply our subject matter expertise to provide that context that Payman was talking about, because AI sometimes just doesn't get us there. It may point out, oh, this happened, a few times, but if we were to do it manually, may not be able to detect that right off the bat. It might take a lot more time. But to provide context and meaning and impact to that little ounce of information, to turn that into something that actionable, it still requires a lot of analytical mindset and from our subject matter expertise that are familiar with the operation, to help us get to the objective of implementing and mitigating that safety risk wherever that belongs. So I think inherently people, when they see that and see the impact of, oh, I actually can do my job a lot more efficiently, and I don't see how it's going to replace me. It really isn't a question that people even have, or a concern that people have. They just see the benefit of, I can do my job a lot more efficiently. I can do what I love doing. And in honesty, we're all safety professionals here, including a lot of you on the webinar, is that we enjoy looking into the data and identifying risks, right? If something can help us do that a little bit better and help us focus on the fun part, right? Coming up with recommendations, doing the work to make it safer. That's for the better. It makes my job even more enjoyable.
It sounds like your team has had some aha moments, right? Where they were like, "Oh, yes, this makes a lot of sense." And seeing those insights. And I think more and more as you embrace AI and the insights that you can glean from it, and you have those moments of, "Wow, look at what I was able to point out. Look at how fast I got to this. Look at what I can do with it now." And take your daily operations that much further, and really start to be, strategic and proactive in your safety programs, which is a huge win. And I think it's hard. I talk to a lot of safety professionals in my role, and I think it's hard to kind of come up above the weeds sometimes and have that broader picture of what's going on and being able to see, across different sites for trends, et cetera. And this is such a great tool to be able to do that. So I think those little quick wins or those little aha moments really can turn into something transformational, in terms of embracing AI across the wider team, despite some early skepticism.
Yeah.
And with that, I think it's time for our first poll question. So in this poll, in this webinar, we don't want to just sit around and talk to you guys. We want to engage you. So the first question is, what's the biggest barrier that your organization faces when considering AI for safety data analytics? There's a lot of options for you to choose from. So if you can pick one, I'd love to see more about or hear more about what's impacting the audience. And we'll just give everybody a second to do some thinking, and then we'll move on to the next slide. Let's see.
Uncertainty about where to start. Nice.
Uncertainty about where to start. Yeah, again, and James and Paywan, I'd love for you guys to talk, briefly about your journey, as we are kind of naturally doing on this webinar. But usually we see data quality as kind of the big fear factor. But this is usually a quick second is, I don't even know how to get my arms around this thing.
Yeah, I guess maybe I can take that one a little bit. I had the same feeling initially, right? I didn't engage really AI in the workplace until earlier this year. AI has really been around our lives, personal lives, for quite a while now. It is totally normal to have that feeling, but for me, I'm not an AI expert, by the way. I may love data and I'm a nerd in safety, but I'm just not a AI tech person. But what I found is that I break out AI improvement in two ways. One is that it improves efficiency in something that you do. The other thing is it provides a higher quality product. And sometimes it's a combination of both. But I generally find AI deployments that help with efficiency is easier to palette, easier to achieve. And if you're thinking about your own organization or things that you're doing or processes that you're living in, think about efficiency first, because that tends to be more receptive or palatable by people that it might involve, because it just makes their lives a little bit easier, but it doesn't change the nature of what they do really. And the output it's going to be the same or better, right? You basically just shrinking the time that it requires. But when you start talking about quality of the output, when AI providing insights and then you do something with that insight, that becomes a little bit more complex. But I would say focus on the efficiency. You're already going to see miles and miles of gains just from doing that. And the time that you save from there, you can actually still do manual work to improve the quality of your programs or your output. And I feel like that will be a logical step to start. But then, you just got to think through your work day or things that you're doing at work to see how can you do that better. I was just actually inspired by one of our operational teams, our business teams that handles disability, complaints or passengers with disability boarding our aircraft. They have a lot of questions before they fly on us, and they actually send a lot of emails. But our team only has a few people, and they can't handle the volume that comes in. With Allegiant, we have a lot of passengers with disabilities flying on us, and we want to accommodate as much as we can, right? And with these emails coming in, it's impossible to come up with manual responses to each one. So we actually created our own chat agent within the company, and we put in people's emails and we provide the knowledge base of all the policies that we have and all of the assistance that we can provide to passengers with disability. All that context is there. AI really just need to combine all that to apply that to the specific situation that the passengers have and provide an email response. And of course, we don't send it right away. We obviously augment that with a little bit of human logic. But that helps us drive efficiency and probably a better quality response to the passenger as well, because AI tend to pick up on little nuances of things that people bring up in their emails as well. And maybe a human reading an email might forget to respond to that part of it.
I think you mentioned a really good point, is that you don't have to roll out an AI-driven safety program on day one, right? And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to take words out of your mouth, but James and Pei Wen, your journey started with noticing a kind of a key thing that you're like, this takes a lot of time. This is really, monotonous. There's got to be a better way. And I think as you start to look across your organization and you see some of those tasks that, could be automated, and there's the tooling out there and software providers that are actually, putting that into workflows for safety professionals, you're going to start very small and continue to grow. But I think it kind of starts to snowball at some point. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think down a little bit further, we'll talk about one specific example of how we have created that efficiency in one of our safety programs as well. So I think.
Yeah, well, and with that, let's see if my slides will actually move here, and we'll go to the next one and jump into making safety personal through AI. So this is going to be kind of a dual question for both of you guys, but one of the key takeaways today is making safety both personal and actionable. So James, what does that actually look like in practice at Allegiant?
Yeah, I think ultimately we have to think about, from a safety professional side, we have to think about our customers. For me being in an airline industry, my customers, in terms of being in the safety department, obviously we have our passengers. That's a very important part of it. But our customers also are operational leaders, our business unit leaders, and also people that are within the safety and security realm. And how do we provide them what they need to take actions on the line? And can I give you an example of what we're developing to help them bridge that gap? Because if you think about a traditional safety program, you have reporting, you have other, safety, what we call safety assurance in safety management system. That feeds you data, right? But then to process that data, you have to clean it up, you have to apply some taxonomy, you have to analyze it, you have to come up with something that maybe is insightful, and then generate some recommendations, and you talk to stakeholders about things you have found. All that takes a lot of time, right? But what if we were to be able to create something with a more accessible platform, so people can actually query safety and related things on demand? So what we are thinking about building is that, with an airline, we have a lot of stations across the nation, and the leadership locally at these stations really need some insight on how they're performing, because we can receive reports from various groups within the company. And what we're thinking is that we can build a weekly or some sort of weekly or bi-weekly digest of some sort that is AI enabled, so that you're not going to send them 20 reports that you received in the last week, because that's impossible to digest. But if we can get AI to digest that 20 reports and see if there's any commonalities, any trends in the last week or two, then that's much more palatable for the station leader to understand, okay, yeah, this is what we have experienced. It seems like this has a slight uptick, so maybe I should look into that. Maybe I should do a little bit more supervision on that area. But like zooming back out into the corporate level, if we were to do the same thing, but also increasing the scope a little bit to where that operational leader oversees things, then that operational leader has also a little bit more insight in terms of where do they need to apply resources, attention, oversight to, so that they can improve their operational performance and safety performance at the same time. But then for safety professionals, we have to present a lot of information and insights, right? For us to kickstart that process, this actually takes a lot of time. I think Peiwen and I will dive into that a little bit more later. But for that time, it would be great if something were to be able to give us a little pointer about where to focus on first, right? And that's what AI can help us do as well. And doing these things kind of make the whole topic more personable, because it's relatable. Ultimately, we want to know something that's related to what we do on a day-to-day, and that makes it relevant to us, and that makes us want to retain that information to do something about. And that's how I think AI can help customize and personalize these messages and insights to make a bit more of an impact in the workplace in terms of improving safety.
I like how you put that, because in our world, and in the world of product management, we look for that, so what factor. Like, yes, I have these reports. Yes, I see these dashboards, but so what? What does it mean for me? How does it impact my day? How does it impact the decisions I'm going to make to, make my operation safer? And I think, in the age of having access to so much information, so much data, you can easily become overwhelmed to the point where you kind of see stars, right? You go a little cross-eyed, and it's very hard to say, okay, yes, I have all of this information. What do I do with it? And we kind of keep coming back to that, aha, this is it's like a little flashlight in the dark guiding me to what is important. Where do I need to go? Where do I need to look? And I think that theme is just, overarching here. Hey, let's talk about, now that so we have all of this data, and we have kind of a guidance of where should we pay attention, what's going to be the most impactful. How is AI helping you move from reactive to predictive and more, proactive safety measures? And what patterns are you spotting now that were maybe invisible before?
Yeah, absolutely. So AI has helped us move away from reacting to isolated incident and then towards identifying broader pattern that might signal emerging risks. One example that how we have used AI to detect recurring procedural non-compliance among station service provider. So there were like not immediate obvious because they were the data basically that were not immediately obvious because they were basically scattered across different areas and locations. But then AI actually helped us to spot which provider might need our attention and based on the trends over time. And then the shift that actually has been significant. Instead of waiting for multiple issues to pile up, we are now able to ask questions earlier and intervene sooner. I think there are lots of misunderstanding on the word of predictive. I think predictive doesn't really mean that we get it right every time, but it gives us a clear, an early warning signal that we can act on. So I would like to think this way actually. With AI, we can start looking into something when it is 100 feet away from the house, or even before we step out the house, but not when it's already 100 miles past us. And that kind of foresight makes a real difference in how we actually manage safety.
Yeah, and I loved that so much that I put it in big quotes so everybody could kind of really just embrace what you were saying there, because it's so true. And I think when you're looking at an incident, and or an isolated incident, for example, it's easy to say, oh, it's just an isolated incident. But when you're, again, coming up above the weeds and being able to see across these different, sites, for example, that, oh, this really isn't an isolated incident. Maybe geographically, yes, but on the as a higher level overview, this is actually a pretty consistent issue that we need to deal with. And conversely, when there is a real isolated incident, it's not something to blow out of proportion, because you can see that it truly is isolated. So there's got to be some validation there that you can kind of lean back on and understand that you're kind of going the right direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, James, tell us about a time when AI-driven insights changed how your team approached safety or a safety challenge, and what was the overall impact to the people and the operations?
Yeah, this was actually one of the example I'm about to say is one of the first ones that we have tested AI with, and it's very low level, like just basically your ChatGPT can do this. So it's a risk that's kind of unique to airlines. When we board passengers in the US, we sometimes have ground boarding gates, and what we have is passenger boarding ramps, and not necessarily a jet bridge. So basically a zigzagging ramp that brings passengers up to the ramp. But because if you research a little bit about Allegiant, we recently brought on a new aircraft type in the fleet, and the door height is actually different than the fleet that we used to only operate. And so what that meant is that we have identified a risk of our ramps not being able to accommodate that door height, and we have to make modifications to the ramp for it to happen. But our GSE maintenance team has never dealt with that issue before. The manufacturer of these ramps built those ramps when that aircraft type wasn't around, but they have some modification guidelines, but not necessarily instructions or work order generated. So it's just for legal purposes, they didn't want to incur that liability of exactly telling you exactly how to modify the ramp when they don't even know what the ramp looks like nowadays, with companies using it differently and whatnot. And the safety team obviously got involved because that's a safety risk. Because if you can't accommodate door height, passenger with disabilities have a huge step, and that's not really a compliant way of doing an operation. So we got involved, but of all of our subject matter expertise, nobody actually knows how to turn that manufacturer guidance into an actual work order. And maybe some of the risks that we don't know about in terms of maintaining GSE isn't really identified. So what we actually did is we injected the manufacturer guidance and told basically a chat GPT, but you can also use Microsoft Copilot to generate a logical way for someone to digest a modification that needs to be done into a work order. And that work order has to work for 130, well, up to 30 of our locations that have these ground boarding ramps. And the risk that we have in safety is that because every location have a different vendor in how we maintain those ramps, we have to apply a consistent methodology to how to modify these ramps so that everyone looking at the work order understand exactly what they're supposed to do with the ramp. And the cool part is that AI gave us so much detail about even down to the drill bits that we need to use and how to set up the ramp, how to measure the height, how to find out where we need to drill. All of these details were outlined exactly how it needs to be in the draft work order. Obviously, we provided a few modifications to the prompt, but the product is that we got a draft of the work order, but we didn't stop there, of course. Like we were talking about, AI only gets you so far. We actually tested that work order with couple of our vendors at a couple of different locations, and the result is very overwhelmingly positive that they were able to follow the instructions pretty much to the T, and it even offered a few guidelines on how to validate those changes from a person that's not the person making those changes. So the vendor may make the change, but then our station leader locally, how do you validate and make sure that that change is effective? So it offered all of these kind of controls in place just from those few prompts, and it was really impressive. And ultimately, we had a successful deployment across the entire network, and all of our ramps are modified successfully. The risk of not doing that is we lose ramps because those are really expensive to replace, up to like $100,000 per ramp. If we mess up the modification, then we have to potentially procure new ones, and also not be able to operate an aircraft there. So the risks there is truly significant. But little things like that, AI can already help you go quite a lot further than what we would have done before without it.
I'll never look at a ramp the same way while boarding an airplane ever again after that. And it's such a good example. I'm going to move us into the next poll question, though, because we don't have a ton of time left. And, we're getting lost in this conversation, which is such a good one to have. But if you guys could join us again, which AI application would have the most immediate impact on your safety operations? If you guys could take a second and give us some insights on how you're thinking about this and what would be most impactful, that would be amazing. I think we've got some results coming in. Let's see. Predictive risk identifications and early warnings. That's in line with a lot of what I see when I'm out talking to people as well. But close second, though, is the real-time safety insights and recommendations. Okay, thank you guys. Let's dive back in because I want to talk about, overcoming implementation challenges, because we heard from our first poll question is, I don't even know where to start. And maybe now I do know where I want to start, but how do I get there? So let's talk about the elephant in the room, and that elephant is organizational readiness. How do you get buy-in from teams who might be, skeptical still, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't know that traditional safety programs actually helps us in this case, because traditional safety can be quite a slow-moving machine. I talked about the whole life cycle of how we identify hazards and all the way to how we address risk. It takes a long time. But even a few examples before, we already talked about how we can shorten the time frame in how we understand the risk and how we address and mitigate that risk. And I want to mention the word AI-enabled output, not AI-centric or AI-driven. AI-enabled is already really impactful. It doesn't have to be the entire process. Just a little bit of it is going to get you a lot farther than before. And when people see the product that is higher quality or takes less time and that maybe their work is more enjoyable, I think it naturally just come with the buy-in. If you deploy that successfully, you will find that it sells itself a lot of times. And the part that's kind of dangerous actually is that when you can achieve those results quicker in a higher quality, people just change their standard expectation, expect you to do better every time that you come across their stuff. So that's kind of how I find that challenging.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And kind of on that note, let's talk about data quality for a second, because this is usually cited as a major obstacle. Pei Wen, you talked about, bad data in, bad data out. Where do you start when it comes to data quality to prepare for AI?
Yeah, our organization years ago actually experienced a similar issue. This is the exact issue, actually, not even similar data quality issue. And I will say that the first step is not to wait for your data to be perfect. No organization actually has flawless data. And if you want to wait until everything is clean and standardized, you will never start. But instead, focus on understanding what data you already have and how it is currently being captured. And from there, they identify the critical data points that actually support decision making, and then start something small and prioritize what matters most. So that could be, like audit result, report narrative, training records, and you can go on the list, right? But once
Yeah.
you know what is important, then you can work on improving the structure and consistency, and then through process improvement and also data collection. I'd like to tap out a little bit on the poll earlier that some people are talking about predictive, and then also I like the figure out the risk and then providing recommendation. We actually a long time ago that we have folks actually collecting station quality assurance data, and then the data was massive, but they were dirty. Like there were a lot of qualitative information. But then as we are doing a lot of stuff, then that's where we start noticing something can improve. And then we slowly change the process, how auditors actually collect the data. And as we go, now, with the AI, it's a similar concept, right? Like you have to start with something. You have to plug in something and know what you want first.
No, that's great insights. And the recurring theme is like you can start small. You don't have to do everything all at once. So let's talk about leadership and what role does leadership play in the successful adoption of AI? Because I imagine you guys didn't operate in a silo or a vacuum here. You had to get organizational buy-in from leadership. What do you wish you had known when you started this journey?
Yeah, I think I can take that one. So I think it's important to think about how you can improve interactions between people and your safety programs, because ultimately that's how you build the safety culture, and that's what safety leadership should really focus on. But in terms of successful AI adoption, I think, like I said, it really becomes an easy conversation when people see the results. So start small and then gain traction and go from there. I'll talk about a AI deployment in a second here, but that costs us only $2,000, and you realize how much of an impact it has for a year. And in that sense, I basically just asked for forgiveness after the fact, and nobody even questioned that amount spent for the impact that it has driven across our various teams. So really just start small and prove your point, and I guarantee you it will get there. It is just so easy to deploy nowadays. Even with your Copilot, you have access to like chat agents, and you can build your own agent in Copilot. So a lot of ways to make an impact here with AI.
Awesome. We should have pulled that as a direct quote, like start small and ask for, forgiveness later. Be really
Yeah.
That's not me advocating for anything. I'm just saying it is I hear that a lot. Okay, we're almost ready to wrap up and get into the Q&A, but one last poll question. Based on what you've heard today, how would you describe your organization's current AI readiness for safety applications specifically? James, Peiwen, do you guys have any gut feelings on what's going to be the leading
Ooh, that's a tough.
answer here?
Maybe
I think
number.
it's tough.
I think a lot of people would think number 4, but
I feel I will be early explosion phase.
yeah, that's probably true too. Yeah. Let's see. You're right.
Peiwen
Yay!
for the win.
Wow, overwhelmingly positive. Well, that's
Yeah.
actually amazing, right? People are exploring that. And maybe I can just jump real quick into the scenario that I was talking about. So at Allegiant, we process a whole lot of reports from frontline employees, and over 13,000 of them every year. It's continuing to grow across all of our frontline employees. Thinking about dispatchers, flight attendants, pilots, mechanics, our stations, agents. And our specialists, which we have quite a few, process all those reports. We have to de-identify them because for our safety culture, when we're reviewing those reports with operational leaders, we want to really just focus on the event, the root cause, and not necessarily who reported or who was involved in those events. And what's really required for us to do is then to redact a lot of identifying information from the narratives. In the past, we've done that manually on 13,000 reports a year. That's a lot of work. But recently, we've deployed a AI solution where we basically just throw that narrative in there, and AI will follow through a prompt and redact all of the identifying information accordingly. And not only would it say, redacted, it will also give you the context. So if there are multiple people involved, it would know enough to say that, agent 1 did this to the flight attendant number 1, and flight attendant number 2 did something. And so all of that is contextual, and it's really been amazing. And the reception from our employees is that it actually increased their job satisfaction, because that's one thing they don't want to do ever again now that it's enabled. And to talk about impact, it saved us 25 working days total for a year across 4 specialists. So think about what other things they can be doing with that time. And nobody has been complaining. I'm not even complaining about, even if they were to sit at their desks and do nothing, I would still be happier because they have now time to kind of think about what they can make an impact on. And obviously, we have no shortage of things for safety folks to be doing nowadays. And it actually reduces a lot of the errors that we had before as well, because manually redacting, you can guarantee that there are some misses here and there. So, and that was the thing that I was talking about, that only costs us $2,000 a year, which is insane.
Yeah. So we could keep talking probably for another hour, but I do want to be cognizant of the time. So we have about 8 minutes left for Q&A. So we're going to skip right into it. So let's see what questions we have coming in.
Well, thank you both for this presentation. Before we start the Q&A, we want to remind everyone that the evaluation survey we're asking you to complete, the survey will open in a different screen after this webinar. Your input is important because it does help us improve our future webcasts. Our first question is, what AI tools have you obtained the most benefit from in EHS?
What AI tools? I would say, think about the most accessible things. I would say even what you have. A lot of organizations now have, Microsoft Suite and Copilot, and actually the capabilities there are increasingly impactful. I was talking about the agent that you can create within Copilot, and you can tailor that. That basically is a new employee that you now have that is very smart but don't know a whole lot about what your team is doing. So you have to train them up to do that. But there are also other solutions that are like Power Automate, where it automates your process, but also apply a little bit of AI technology into kind of the flow of the automation. But those have been kind of our major ones thus far.
And one of the things, just to hit on that from the technology side, is at IdeaGen, we've worked with our customers to identify what are those things that we can embed into workflows to kind of take some of that away, some of that need to use an external system like Copilot or ChatGPT if you want something that's secure and really pervasive and contextual for your organization within the actual workflows of your safety management system.
So our next question, how or where did you learn effective prompt engineering?
I can
That's
answer that one.
yeah, maybe Pam, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. So I think the reason that the reason that people feel like we are too early to explore that option is because the world of AI, computer science, data engineering, they sound scary. But then it's actually not true because there are lots of simple ways. So I think one way that you can approach this one is starting with curiosity. Like there is something that you are curious that you want it to be answered, but has to be something that you are very familiar, that you want to know. So you don't always have to start something with work. And once you have that question, and then I just say that what ingredients that or what these are all the ingredients I have in my refrigerator, what meals I can potentially make out of it. And stuff like that, right? And you can go YouTube, and then YouTube, there are lots of people who tell you how to uh, basically optimize your prompt. Like you can add a privacy, a bracket, something, and give like the context, the goal, the plan, and then you tell you what. And you just kind of keep optimizing each prompt as you go. And then when you see the, like the recipe or whatever food that actually will help you to make, then you know that prompt works. And as you get more as you get more practice into that, then that's when you can also try to use your work related stuff, no matter if it's employee injury, hazard spell, or safety related, all kinds of safety related stuff. Then you can slowly plug that in with something small. And then I actually learned lots of stuff from YouTube, and also read a lot of Microsoft documentations online. But I never started something big. It's always with a question. And then based on that question, I try to figure it out where that someone might answer my question. And a lot of time, there might be 10 different sources. I take a piece of there, and then here I am, have my prompt.
Yeah, and don't forget, AI can also answer questions about how do you write an AI prompt. We have had that before. We had AI that didn't understand what we were writing, and we asked AI, can you rephrase it so that AI can understand, and it did work.
Our next question, this is kind of a lengthy one, so I'm regularly training and coaching regarding heat stress for my workforce. I've seen heat exposure and stress increase over the years. Data and research reflect my experience. What are the ethical considerations that the panel has about using AI, given that the computing and data centers use significant resources in a way that is consistent with the other actions attributed with human contribution to changing climate and hotter conditions?
I see. So I guess that's a really a broader question, but I would maybe necessarily maybe put a few things in context, right? So what is the impact that you're making, and is it worth making a sacrifice somewhere else? Because maybe you save you make the workplace safer, and these people have a greater impact in the environment. I think it's really a cycle, and I think you just kind of have to weigh the benefits, and obviously everything that we do have a little bit of compromise and sacrifice, but is it worthwhile? Even just putting the time in it. But those are really valid points to have under consideration when you deploy new technologies.
And, again, and answering this from the software side, working with some of these, larger companies, there's always optimization happening on the tech side as well to decrease the load, right, from having those larger, we'll call them environmental impacts of, processing data. It's a very hot topic, and it's one that is discussed quite often, and there's a lot of good work being done to move forward in a more sustainable direction.
So it's like we have time for one more question. Just to confirm my assumption, we need to have ChatGPT Plus or Pro in order to have a capacity for any improvement in our approach?
I'd say it depends on your organization. Every organization may have a different AI tool. Some even have internal built AI tools. ChatGPT is just one option. There's also Copilot and other tools out there. But it's really getting access to whatever you have. And if you need to improve the quality of that AI, and there are a lot of different models out there, then that's a conversation you can approach with your organization. But yeah, there's a lot of options out there. Crystal, anything to add?
No, I mean, like there's a lot of tools out there, and one of the things that we're seeing more and more is the hesitation to use external tools with sensitive data. Especially, we work a lot with government labs, et cetera, that they can't use that, and so they're looking for those internal tools, like I said, built into their workflow that are contextual just for them, for added security.
Yeah, I guess I just want to double or add that there are governance in how we use data with AI in our organization. I think every organization should have that just to protect their data. I think that's a very critical piece
Yeah.
to build confidence with your users.
Well, thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, we have run out of time today. This ends today's Safety Health Magazine webcast. I'd like to thank our awesome presenters, James Lewin, Pei-Wen Chen, and Crystal Truax, along with the entire team from our sponsor, Ideagen. And of course, all you who joined us today, take care and have a safe day.
Thank you.